Hey guys, what is up? I really want to talk about Invincible 3, Episode 7, titled What Have I Done? And guys, this was probably the best episode of the season. I mean, it had to be, because there was just so much stuff going on. There was such big moments, and I have a feeling it's not even going to be the best episode of the whole series, to be honest. I kind of have a feeling that greater things are yet to come, guys. For next week's episode. But without further ado, let's talk about it, okay? I appreciated how they showed how Engstrom lived because, one of the things that kind of caught me off guard for him being the villain, kind of overarching villain of this season was because in my mind, I'm like, the dude's dead, right? Like, the dude has to be dead. But no, he is not dead. He is very much alive, and the way they explain how he lived made sense to me. It totally worked. And he has set forth just travesty, like just utter destruction, using the different marks, and even using the marks of like his world, which is kind of wild. Like, but I guess his mind is so warped now that he doesn't even realize that, but he's basically using all these evil marks to go out into, our main mark's world and utterly just destroy it. And it's pretty harrowing to watch, and they're everywhere. And not only they're everywhere, they're facing different characters, from the comics. And that was really cool to see because none of us thought we were going to see them. I was really hoping that we would see Techno Jacket. And everything that I've been hearing, it's like, you're not going to get to see any of them. You're not going to see Wolfman, Techno Jacket. I'm blanking on some of the other different characters, but you weren't going to see them. And of course, we kind of knew we wouldn't see someone like Spawn. And I think that's probably a good thing. But some of the characters that are really important to Invincible and to the story of Invincible, it was one of those things where I'm really happy that we got to see those characters show up, and I really hope there's more to them. I would really love, a Guardians of the Globe spinoff or something, and I really do hope we get to see some more of those characters, but I'm just happy that they were there, and they were present, and it was really cool to see them fight, and to show that there are some elite, dangerous fighters in the world of Invincible, and so that was really cool as well. And something I mentioned just a second ago with like Spawn, I am glad. I understand the comics, they kind of put all the Image characters in there. But, to me, I don't need what wouldn't make sense. And to me, something like Spawn really wouldn't make sense in the world of Invincible. I guess maybe you can make that character work and delve into it, but, and they've had conversations about hell being a thing. But I don't know. I just don't know if that character would work. But something like Wolfman, something like those other characters, clearly they can work. And clearly they can work inside the world of Invincible. So I'm glad we got to see those. Would have been cool to see Savage Dragon, for example. I don't know. I think it would, but to get the rights, to get the approvals, the permission to do it, maybe it's just too difficult. And maybe the money wasn't worth spending for that. But, it is what it is. I'm happy with what we got. We needed a Rex special episode. They did that Eve episode, Adam Eve, and it was a really good special episode, especially while we were waiting. We were waiting so long for that second season. It was something really cool that they gave us as a little gift for us waiting so long. And even though we didn't have to wait as long for this season, I really wish they would have budgeted for a Rex episode, especially knowing what's happened to Rex now. I just think that would have been really good. I think that would have been a really good thing. I wish they would have done that, honestly. Powerplex coming back made sense. It was cool. It shows that, again, that he will be needed. When the Viltrumites show up, that's a character that's going to need to be there to fight these guys, to give a last stand for the Earth. Just keep him away from Mark. Keep him away from Mark, you're going to be good to go. Just keep him away from Mark, and the guy won't lose his mind and go crazy. And this is a good reminder, talking about Mark, that some of these guys, some marks are weaker than others. And we were learning that during the battle about some of these people, who they were losing to, and some of the characters weren't losing to others. But you can tell that not all the marks have really had to train too hard, because nobody on their Earths compared to the things that Invincible has had to go through. And to be honest, maybe because most of the bad guys, like most of the lethal bad guys, I mean, most of them are, pretty strong. And if you're evil like they are, you're not having to go against people who are super powerful. So that was cool. That made sense. And, it was cool to see. The zombie gag, I'm kind of wondering where they're going with that. They've done it a couple of times now, and I don't know what the overall arching point's going to be. And maybe that's what it's just supposed to be. It's just supposed to be a gag. But I really hope maybe the plan is that, because I know he has certain seasons he wants to go through to complete this series. And it seems everyone loves it, so it seems that we'll probably get all those seasons of Invincible. Maybe what it'll be is we'll keep on teasing it, and then the final season will have like one episode dedicated to the zombie. I don't know. But it's, it was cool to see. It was fun. Even like Immortal was like, what? Like, what is this? What's going on? But going back to the evil marks and just I wrote in my notes, total decimation. Total decimation. Complete destruction of everything. And it just kind of shows you that what it really would be like if all the Viltrumites decided to attack. If all the Viltrumites decided to attack, it would be absolute chaos. It would be absolute chaos. And the fact that this was just a warm-up, because like we said, all these marks aren't as powerful as our mark. Our mark is way more powerful than they are. This was like a training session for what they may have to deal with sooner than they realize. And so that was really cool to watch. Rexplode, man, rest in peace, dude. Like, that's why I was saying he deserved a special episode. And I think if he would have had a special episode, if you got to really see where he came from and see his story, I think his death would have been even more impactful. And I think it would have gave layers to the character. And I think they could budget that. I don't see why they couldn't budget a special episode to come out. Kind of like like albums do. Sometimes they have an EP before their album where there's this EP that has like 3 songs on it. There's no reason, in my opinion, they couldn't do something like that, and do little mini spin-off, little mini limited series runs of different things while we're waiting for the next season. Just my thought, but I really wish we would have got something like that. And it is a bummer that he died. He died saving everyone. He did his best, and the way he went out, it definitely reminded me of something like a Gambit type situation from X-Men 97. But the fact that he even used his own bones to take out that version of Mark, it's just, and someone who's, he is a villain. You understand he's a villain, but when you look at him, he looks like your friend, So the fact that he had to go that way is a really sad way to go, but he did go out in a very baller way, and I knew it was going to happen. You just feel it in the show this season. You just could feel it that his time was coming soon. And, it is what it is. But that actor did a very incredible job. He did a really good job at Rex. And, I wish there would be some way to bring him back. But I know there's not. So that's a bummer. But the shot after, we see all the decimation, we see all the destruction, and we see all the bad things have happened. And, the heroes holding, the other heroes that have fallen. And, it's real sad, real serious. And then they cut to the evil marks. And that shot of all the evil marks was awesome. That was awesome. And just different shots of them in different locations. That was just such a cool thing. And the fact that the original idea did come from the comics and they just adapted it for the show in a unique way, I think it's just really cool. I think I thought that was really cool. And this was interesting. The deal between the marks and the layers that they had, Not all the different marks they all had their reasons of doing what they did. Most of them are pretty evil, but one of them even just wanted his mom. He wanted to bring his mom with him when he went to go conquer another world. Which is probably a crazy, psychotic way of sociopathic way of looking at things. But some of these people really cared, about some of the people on Earth, back in the day, and some of them are just psychopaths. There was that one who went down into Mark's old house to look for his mom, or I guess it was their current house, and the mom wasn't there. And so he was like, oh man, like, I wanted to kill you again. It's like, oh man, some of them are pretty sadistic, but it was cool to see they had different layers. And the eventual double cross, we knew that was going to happen. We knew that eventually either the marks were going to double cross Angstrom, or Angstrom was going to double cross them. And Angstrom double crosses them and sends them into that dimension. And we'll have to see what happens there. I don't know what's going to come forth in that world, but that'll be pretty interesting to see if they can ever escape. And if they do escape, what's going to happen with them. So that'll be pretty interesting there. The fight between Angstrom and Invincible was really good. Thought that was a lot of fun. You could tell that Invincible understood who he was facing now, and he wasn't going to get tricked getting thrown into all the different, multiverses in different places and get stuck forever and ever and ever. That was fun last season to watch that and watch him do that. But this time you could tell it wasn't needed, and so that was a lot of fun that he could learn how to navigate fighting someone like Angstrom. And it shows that Mark's skills as Invincible have grown and gotten much better. So that was something that was really cool, and I appreciated that. And the thing that I always complain about, the animation. Every episode this season, I have mentioned the animation, how the animation could be better. The animation should be better. The animation not only was better this episode, the animation this episode should be the standard for every episode. And so I don't know why Amazon doesn't give them enough money for this, but this season, when it comes, every episode this season has been subpar when it came to animation, besides this episode. This episode should be the standard. If we're trying to compete with, all the things we're trying to compete with when it comes to anime and everything else, right? And Invincible, to me, has the best shot at competing against anime. If there was ever an American animation that had the best shot about it, competing against anime, it is this show. It is exactly this show. And there should be no excuse that this should not be the standard every episode. Every episode, the animation quality should be this good. This good. And I really hope next season they give them more money to make sure that that is the standard, because this should be the standard. And I guess we know why maybe the budget was lower on some of the other episodes, because they were trying to save their money for an episode like this, and probably the episode for next week, but we'll get in that in a little bit. Powerplex having his little rehash, after, Angstrom's defeated, all those different things, and, Invincible's trying to help, the survivors and the wreckage and everything, and Powerplex comes back and starts blaming him. You could see that there's probably going to be a divide with a lot of those characters, that not all of them are going to totally disagree with what he's saying. A lot of them are going to agree with Powerplex and with what he's saying. And even though I still think that, Powerplex has a lot of fault with, what happened to him and the choices he made, you can tell that people feel strongly about this. And even though there's a lot that Mark can't control, it's hard not to look at Mark in a negative way when not only can you see how evil he could be, like he could be a really evil person if he wanted to, but how powerful he is. And if he ever turned evil, the tragedy that could happen, especially when they're lucky enough that he is probably the most powerful Mark. I think that's safe to say that he is the most powerful Mark. So, I don't know. That's just it's a pretty crazy thing to think about. And, when it comes to Angstrom, I don't know if we're going to see Angstrom again or not, because I haven't read the comics. I don't know. Or I've read the first bit. I have not caught up to where the season is. That's going to be a goal for me this year. I think after this season, by next season, I'm hoping that I've read all of Invincible. That's my goal. I'm hoping that I've read all of Invincible. And we can only hope, but that's what I'm hoping for. But, he has definitely gotten the crosshairs of these engineer type beings, and we'll see what they have in store for him. But clearly, he doesn't have control over himself anymore. They have control over him. So we'll have to see what will happen there. I hope to see more characters, that they showed. They showed quite a few characters, and some of them even had lines. And I really hope that they drop those characters in. I guess, because they have to pay for the rights to have those characters in those moments. Maybe they only save them for a couple of the episodes that matter, the big fight episodes. But it would be cool to see them either, have their own spinoffs, based off their own comics. There's a big audience, I feel like, for Invincible. And so I really hope that we can see more from Techno Jacket, from Wolfman, from all those different characters. I really hope that we get to see that, near in the future. Something that was really interesting to me, actually, was the conversation that Betsy had with Mark when Mark comes back and looks over Eve, after she had gotten hurt by one of the marks and broke her leg, I believe. Betsy's kind of talking to him, and it was real interesting that she made a comment about one of Eve's friends that died. Now, I don't know if Eve's friend died from the attack or if she just died. And I think probably from the attack. But it was interesting to me because, for Betsy and her husband, they've been so worried and so concerned about what Eve does with her powers and all those things. But I think it was kind of, it's kind of that old story about, when we're growing up, our parents are really concerned for us. But, and you have one parent that might be more cautious over the things you do, right? You're jumping on the trampoline, you're swinging on a swing, you're doing something that could be considered technically dangerous. Something technically you could die from, Kids die on trampolines all the time, Things happen. Bad things happen to people in the most harmless kind of ways. But our loved ones do try to protect us, right? They want the best for us. And to me, because you could tell she was nervous talking about it, but it was like, here's this girl that didn't have any powers, yet she's dead. And here's my daughter who does incredible things, fights bad guys, does all this stuff, yet she's still here. And so even though I do care about my daughter, and even though I do fear my daughter's safety, and this is how I'm interpreting it, I could be interpreting it wrong. To me, part of it was kind of like, you only have one life. If my daughter's doing what she's doing what she loves, and she's still coming out on top every time, maybe that's okay. And maybe I shouldn't be as worried, because at the end of the day, all of us can die in so many different ways, And maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of how it felt to me. That she was kind of learning to be okay. At least the mom was learning to be okay with the fact that Eve has powers. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting conversation that really, really spoke to me, honestly. I just thought it was very interesting. And maybe I'm totally off base, and if I am, let me know in the comments down below, but I got something really out of that, and I thought it was good. Immortal, waking back up, and of course said he wants children with Kate, and we've seen what happens to him in the future if he doesn't, but, how he goes mad and he deals with all these different things, being immortal. But, it was a nice moment to see that he wants children with Kate, and maybe something can come from that, because in the future, he didn't remember Kate. He didn't remember who Kate was. And we're assuming that he married Kate. But maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't marry Kate in that timeline. And maybe, this timeline he's going to have children. And what happens if his children, if they were able to get his power and have Duplicate's power? That'd be kind of interesting, I think. But I don't know. Cecil and Mark kind of mending their relationship. It's not totally mended, but they're in the process of mending their relationship very slowly. But I still appreciate it. I think, especially after dealing with Powerplex, I think Mark can understand Cecil a little bit more. He still views some things in a black and white way, but a little less so. And he can kind of understand why Cecil does some of the things he does. And honestly, they need each other. And you can tell that Cecil seems to really care about Mark. And he has his own future for Mark, but you could tell he probably does care a decent amount about Mark. And I do think having Cecil around for counsel, you understand what you dislike about him. You've understood that. But not having Cecil as counsel, I think, would be a bad idea. So I appreciate Mark seeking counsel from Cecil. Me personally, I appreciate that. Him getting offered to lead the Guardians, it's like, yeah, but, he turns it down. And I just hope that, like I said, other characters, spinoffs, there's the Guardians of the Globe storyline with the different characters. I hope we see more of that. I would love a spinoff of the Guardians of the Globe. That's what I would love. I would love that. So we'll have to see what comes from that. And let's just get to it. The thing that we're all going to be excited for, the thing that we're going to be just drooling, waiting for next week is Conquest. Conquest showing up. And give props. I have issues with the whole celebrity casting type thing in Invincible. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan playing Conquest does a great job. And I thought you were going to be able to clearly tell it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who everyone said would be a great Omni-Man. But the fact that he sounds great. He sounds great as Conquest. And I'm very curious to see how that's all going to play out, personally. I have not read the comics to this point. I don't know what's going to happen. I do remember seeing some images dealing with Eve. And I'll just leave that there. But I don't know what's going to happen. And it is kind of weird that Negan, Negan's going to be playing this guy. It kind of makes me concerned what's going to happen to Mark. If you know, you know. If you're a Walking Dead fan, you know why that might be concerning. So, anyway. But, guys, what about you? Did y'all like this episode? How has this season been for you? Have you read the comics? Are you like me where you haven't read at least all of it yet and you're behind? I would love to hear some of your thoughts on that. But anyway, guys, much love. I hope you're doing well, and whatever you're doing and wherever you're going, I hope you're having a good one. Peace.